on and now we're recording. It's about being a badass. When you're in school, a college or university, it's about being a badass on the field, in the classroom, and in the community. And at Bentley, we talk about being a badass when you leave. So it's still about being a badass in your career and still supporting the community. We've had these. This is the fourth in a series of sessions that we've had. We try to connect outstanding former student athletes with outstanding current student athletes, and we do it by team. So today we're really excited to have our baseball team with us. Coach Hill is with us, and really excited to have my friend of now 18 months, Andy Cain, with us. So glad you're with us. At the outset, let me just give you a little bio on Andy. I know that some of you have read the Vanity Fair article that I sent around. It talked a little bit about boomers and what they're all about. But let me give you a little intro, and I'm going to read it around Andy before we go to Q&A. 25 years after graduating, Andy Cain still holds school baseball records as a pitcher at Rose-Hulman College in Indiana, including a career ERA, 1.99, number of complete games, 31. He ranks highly in innings pitched at 319, strikeouts, 258, and earning academic All-America honors in 1999, the year he was named the Southern Athletic Conference Pitcher of the Year. Andy went on to earn an MBA and later a Master of Arts in National Security and Strategic Studies at the U.S. Naval War College. For the past 24 years, Andy has served our country as a nuclear submarine officer. And this year, he was named captain of the USS Ohio, one of 12 premier nuclear submarines that most of you have read about in Vanity Fair. They call these 12 boomers, and they also call them Ohio-class submarines. The fact that Andy is captaining the Ohio, you guys figure out where he stands in the pecking order. You guys figure that out. Andy is an expert in leadership, teamwork, training, risk management, mission accomplishment, quality assurance, nuclear power, and nuclear safety. In 2010, he was elected to the Rose-Hulman Athletic Hall of Fame. And last year, in recognition of excellence both in his career and in service to our country, Andy was selected out of the 40,000 former student athletes who have earned academic All-America and joined just 170 at the time who'd been inducted into the Academic All-America Hall of Fame. We are beyond excited, Andy, to have you both to reminisce a little bit about your college days, which I'm going to ask you about, but also to talk a little bit about, to the extent you can, what you do and how the lessons of being a student athlete serve you as you do your day job. But I'm going to give you a warm-up question, which I told you was coming. We have freshmen, sophomores, juniors, and seniors on the call, or maybe even a grad student. So can you take yourself back almost 30 years, maybe just short of 30 years, to when you arrived as a freshman, and kind of what was it like, maybe a highlight of each of the 4 years, because you get people on this line that have just arrived at Bentley, all the way to those who are looking as seniors to close out a stellar career as Bentley Falcons. So what could you share with this team about your team experiences, what you remember back in the day?
Yeah, it was an interesting question you posed to me, and it made me realize that was a long time ago. I don't think I did the math to realize it was 30 years ago, but I appreciate that. So when I think of my freshman year, I think overall it's the feeling of excitement of starting something new, and I think the realization that high school was over and I have an opportunity to be whatever kind of person and make whatever of myself that I want to, and that it's kind of a clean slate to be who you want to be, and an opportunity to have complete kind of freedom to do so without having the reins of high school and opportunities to succeed and opportunities to fail if you want to too. So um, it was, meet new people, being part of a new team, figuring out how to fit in as a college baseball player rather than a high school baseball player. That was big there. Uh, and then, kind of seeing that play out and um, playing with college seniors too, right? So going from high school and playing from the 15 to 18-year-old age range to going to 18 to 22, 23. And in a lot of ways, me being a pitcher, pitching against grown ass men for the first time. So that was a big adjustment. Um, I think sophomore year was really like, okay, I've got a year under my belt. I know what I'm going back to. I kind of know where I'm going with my baseball career. Starting to get school figured out, and really it was just kind of taking off from all the lessons that I learned as a freshman and trying to apply them as a sophomore. And then coming back for my junior year, the big thing I remember was I had done my second engineering internship by that point, both of them in kind of industrial environments. Came back very dissatisfied with both of those, and really kind of had a like, oh my God, I can't do this for the rest of my life. Very early on that year, I got a flyer in my campus mailbox talking about the nuclear navy. And I picked up the phone and made a phone call and checked it out. And I've been checking it out for the last 25 some years since then. So that was probably the big thing I remember from my junior year was, all right, let's figure something else out and give something a try. And then senior year, I think it was really, so at that point I had already committed to the Navy. Didn't need to worry about getting a job. And it was, hey, one last opportunity. And let's see what we can do on the field and academically, and really go out without any regrets, knowing that, the last time I pick up a baseball for Rose Holman is probably going to be the last time I actually pick up a baseball competitively ever in my life. And I don't want to leave anything out on the field and feel like I have regrets looking backwards.
And you didn't. You did not leave anything on the field,
I
right?
didn't. No. I have not picked up a baseball competitively since then, and I'm okay with that.
That's awesome. Well, that gets people to understand your voice a little bit. And again, before we send it over to the baseball team, I'm going to ask Coach Hill if he wants to say a word or two or ask a question yourself, Coach.
Yes. First off, Andy, thank you for your service to this country. That goes obviously, put yourself in another level of respect from all of us. We're allowed to do the menial things we do in this in our day-to-day lives because of people like you that are protecting us, and that doesn't go unnoticed. And I commend you for that. What an impressive resume. Um, Needless to say, I don't think I came in second to academic All-American to you because I don't think I was even in the same book as what you did, but unbelievable. I think my question for you specifically is talk to these guys about maybe what your baseball experiences did, good moments, bad moments on the mound, maybe, in a bullpen helping out a teammate and how that relates to what you do on a day-to-day basis, being in charge of a sub and having a team, just kind of showing these guys that a lot of life's lessons can be learned day to day on the diamond.
Yeah, I think one of the big things that was appealing to me about the Navy was that although I left it out on the field and was comfortable never picking up a baseball again, I was not ready to not be a part of a team again. I think that was one of the big things about the professional environments that I was in as an intern was it was very much, come to work, socialize on a very kind of superficial level with coworkers, do your job and go home. And I really missed uh, having a group of people that are all aligned to a same goal and are doing something hard together. I think that there's really something to be said in life for overcoming hard challenges with a group of people. And baseball is one of the ways to do that, but certainly submarining is incredibly difficult. It's not a lot of fun sometimes, but when you look back on it with the people that you're doing it with, it is a lot of fun to remember all the hard times that you were going through, and the things that really sucked in the moment become the things that you laugh about and talk about the most. It'll be the same way with baseball when, 5-10 years from now, you're sitting around with people that you played ball with. It's not going to be the games you won. It's going to be the crap practices or the game that you played in the pouring rain or the freezing cold or some other kind of really negative experience at the time becomes the fondest memories. Is funny how that works. But I think to your question on kind of how it translates leadership, it's personal relationships and understanding what motivates other people. Everybody's different in that regard. I think one of the things that I discovered as a student athlete was I'm a super competitive guy. I care a lot. And sometimes you play with people that don't care nearly as much as you do, and that can be frustrating. But the same holds true when I'm in charge of a submarine. Clearly, I care a lot about how my boat does. Not everybody sees that, right? They don't have the same buy-in on a day-to-day basis, but I need to figure out what motivates them to do the best that they can, and to get the most out of the ship, even if they don't necessarily have the same kind of goals that I have.
That's great. Thanks, Andy. Hey, let's open it up to the team. I appreciate you guys consolidating a little bit. Looks like you guys are having some watch parties. I don't see any beverages anywhere, so obviously it's finals. But I think what I would ask you guys to do when you ask your question, just again, unmute, say your first name, because we have a number of people who are together. So Andy can address you as with your first name, and then get your question out. So first name, unmute, first name, and throw your question out to Andy because he's ready.
I'm Brendan.
I'm Hayden.
I'm Gabe.
I'm Jackson.
And first of all, we want to thank you for your service. We really appreciate everything you've done for this country and obviously taking the time to speak with us. And we were wondering, when you first took command of the USS Helena, how did you get all the men on the submarine to like follow your lead and trust you? And like, what were the struggles with that?
Yeah, I think that the title captain carries with it some level of inherent trust. I think, everybody sees what's required to get there. So on day one, you kind of have that, but then it's on you from there on out, right? And I don't know if you guys have done much reading on different types of leadership or the skills that you can kind of convey to kind of express your leadership. I'm not while I'm comfortable talking, I'm not a super outgoing or extroverted guy. So I'm not gonna, I rah to some degree when it's appropriate. But I am kind of the silent warrior, if you will. I prefer to gain the trust and confidence of the people with my actions. And so part of that is being an expert in what I'm doing. The same kind of principle applies to baseball too, right? You show what kind of leader you are by how you practice every single day, by how you carry yourself, by not shortcutting, whatever steps you're trying to take, by being the first one in the weight room in the morning or whatever else. If you want that out of other people, then you have to show that you're willing to do that kind of stuff yourself. So I'm a leader by example, and that's kind of how I prefer to go about business. I don't need to, I don't want to have to tell everybody why I should be the captain, right? I want them to just know that.
Thank you.
Yep.
Hi, Andy. My name is David. I'm here with Brian, Mark, Nick, Kurt, and Jackson. and we all wanted to thank you for your service. And our question for you was, when you were a kid, could you have envisioned yourself in the profession that you're in today?
Never. If you would have told me when I was going to college that I was going to leave with a job in the Navy, I would have told you you're crazy. I had no interest in going to a Naval Academy or Air Force or anything else. I had no interest in pursuing ROTC at all. It was truly, you know, like I said, I got that flyer in my campus mailbox. One, they offered a considerable amount of money, which was intriguing at the time. But the other piece of it was, hey, you get the opportunity to study naval nuclear engineering, and then apply that by not only being a supervisor of the nuclear reactor on board a submarine, but then by getting to be a ship driver as well. And so I thought, you know, like what an incredible opportunity. And even if I hate every single day of it for the rest of my life, I could say I served on a submarine, and I figured that would be a worthwhile time to spend and to be a cool story one way or the other. And as it turned out, I liked it a lot. So I made the right choice on that. But yeah, I think you know, some of the things I was thinking through and talking to you guys too is, you know, I think remembering kind of where I was, you feel like every decision that you make is super important, and it is, and every decision can be life changing, but don't be scared to take a chance. I think there's a fear in a lot of people that if you don't make the right decision on day one leaving college, that there's no turning back. And that's so untrue. So, you know, while you're young and you don't have a family or kind of other people that are relying on you, find an opportunity to do something that you think you're really going to enjoy or that you think that's cool. And if it doesn't work out, start over. You can be starting over for a long period of time when you're young, even though it doesn't feel that way at the time.
Thank you.
Yep. You can also join the Navy.
Hi, I'm Jake,
I'm Zach. I'm Harrison.
and thank you for your service. Our question for you is, what skills from baseball have correlated to your job and everyday life?
Yeah, I think, you know, so I was a pitcher, obviously. And I think that is very much the leader on the baseball field. I know catchers would probably argue with me, but I'll argue with you back on that. And so you're kind of the field general in a lot of ways, and everybody's looking to you to kind of set the tone. And the same holds through for not just being the captain, but being an officer in general, being the officer of deck, driving the ship, and being in charge of a watch team. It is the same sort of thing. I think baseball gave me a lot of self-confidence, and drive, and gave me a lot of practice on the teamwork aspect, and how to talk to people that are your friends in a way that gets them to perform better, or to, you know, to have a hard conversation with a buddy about, hey, you're not pulling your weight right now. That can be a very hard thing to do, but it's a necessary thing to do in a professional environment, certainly on a submarine. Yeah, a submarine, it is a professional work environment, and you are with coworkers, but you live with those coworkers. And so it's a very different sort of thing, and you get very close with people, but you still have a job to do. And so being able to toe the line of having a hard conversation with people, and letting them know, hey, you're not getting the job done right now, without ruining relationships and negatively affecting kind of overall performance after that, was something that baseball really helped to refine as well.
Thank you.
Yep.
Hi, I'm Hunter. Thank you for your service. I wanted to ask, out of all the decisions that you had to make as the commander of a nuclear submarine, what was the most difficult one, and what did you use to help you make that decision?
That's a tough one. You know, I think, you know, so I've been in situations that maybe I can't talk about that I've had to make fast decisions. But you know, I think not necessarily hard if you're trained to know what to look at and to make those decisions. Um, I think the hard decisions that I've had to make have been in regards to people, and yeah, I have been in the place where I've had to fire some people, and that's never easy. Um, and making sure, I guess the the takeaway there is I always wanted to make sure that I gave that person every single opportunity to turn things around, and that I gave everything of myself to help them to do that. And that when the time came to make a change, I was comfortable that I was doing what was best, not only for the ship, but that for that person as well. Not everybody is cut out to be in a certain job. There are jobs that I am 100% sure that I would not be cut out for. And the right answer might be somebody coming up to me and saying, "Hey, how about you go try something else?" And so that's kind of where I've had to get with that. But I think that is probably the hardest thing looking back that I've had to do is tell somebody, "Hey, this job isn't for you."
I also wanted to ask, with escalating tensions between a lot of nuclear powers, United States, Britain, Russia, and China, what are the odds that you think that the Ukraine-Russia conflict will actually escalate into a nuclear armed conflict?
Um, I would like to say very low. I think, I think Russia likes to talk very strong, and that's always in the back pocket. But I think everybody recognizes that nobody wins in that situation, and that it's better to use the nuclear threat as a threat than it is to actually get into something where we're firing missiles back at each other. Because, like I said, nobody wins in that situation, including the people that would like to do that. It's never say never, because you never know what I don't know. It's complex.
Yeah.
And it's certainly a reason why I think, when we're dealing with nuclear superpowers, you have to be very careful and you have to take it seriously, because you don't want to cross the line or put somebody in a situation to where they feel like nuclear is the only option remaining. You always want to give somebody an out, without causing them to lose face or feel like, their regime is crumbling. Um, but I think in general, we all recognize that would be a terrible day for everybody on the face of the earth if that was to happen.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Corbin, I'm Jack. I'm Joey. And again, thank you for your service, sir. And I know you touched on this a little bit earlier, but what are kind of the most important qualitative skills and soft skills that you've tried to learn and try to master to give you success in your field and make you the best possible leader that you can
Yeah.
be? And also, what are some skills you're still maybe trying to develop, as you continue?
Yeah. I think as far as soft skills go, that the most important thing is to know your people. I make it a point to know something about every single person on board the submarine. I like to walk around the ship and have conversations and get to know them. You get to you learn things about people. You learn things about their family. You learn things about personal lives that really impact the way that they think and the way that they perform. And when you can develop personal relationships with people and have them know that you care about them as a person, then they will do incredible things to try to do what you're asking them to do. And I think it goes a long way towards building for me, a command in my environment where everybody trusts each other. A submarine is all about trust. I say this to every single person that checks in on the boat. We run on trust. All right. The nuclear reactor is what powers the vessel, but trust is what drives the engine. We've got a hundred and something people on board the ship. We shut the hatches and we submerge underneath the water, and we've got nobody to rely on except for ourselves. and when people go to sleep, they want to be able to rely on the people that are staying and watch, and vice versa. And you do that by trusting, the people that are to your left and to your right. And so kind of back to my, leadership by example thing, displaying my trust in others goes a long way, but really showing that I care about people and that I want what's best for them. The boat always comes first, but the people are part of the boat as well. And I have to relay that what I'm doing is what's best for not just for the ship itself, but for everybody on board.
Did baseball help you develop these soft skills? Would you say, like, kind of meeting other people and stuff like that, learning how to coexist with teammates? Did that help you out? Would you say learn those soft skills as it pertains to what you do now?
Could you say that again? That was a little bit fuzzy.
So, as a baseball player, did you develop these soft skills during your career as a college baseball player? Did that kind of help you moving forward in your active service and stuff like that?
Yeah, it did to a degree, but the Navy's a different environment than a submarine, and it's kind of interesting. You show up. So my first boat, you're an officer from day one, so you're expected to be a leader, but you don't know jack or squat about a submarine, and you really spend about the first year. But it takes about 6 months to qualify to stand supervisor of the reactor plant, and then another 6 months after that to qualify to drive the ship. And the whole time that you're doing that, you're learning from the people that you're in charge of. So it's a very interesting dynamic to rely on your subordinates to teach you how to do things on board. And so it's a very kind of tricky line to walk in terms of being a leader, but at the same time, in a lot of ways, being a follower. And so it's a difficult thing to do. When you show up to your second boat as a department head, so I was the navigator on the USS Buffalo, so I was in charge of all the navigation and then all the operations. And your second time around, you're fully qualified, and so you've got the cachet of having a tour under your belt, but you still have to prove yourself again. It becomes a little bit easier in the leadership and command kind of presence and direction your second time around. And then as you continue to move on, that the more senior you get, obviously the easier it is to kind of do that, because you're not dealing with peers as much as you are with not just younger people but less experienced people. But yeah, at the beginning, it was pretty difficult, and I was happy that I had the baseball experience where you kind of have that hierarchy as well, going from freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, having been a team captain in high school and in college, and having people look to you to talk to them, to charge them up, to get on them if practice isn't going as well, or to just in general be a cheerleader. Every aspect of being a part of a team growing up made being a submariner 100 times easier than I think people that don't have that experience.
Thank you, sir, and thank you for your service.
Yep.
Hello, my name is Justin, and thank you for your service and all you've done for the country. As Coach said, does not go unnoticed. I have two questions. My first one is kind of an offshoot of your answer to Hunter's first question. You said that sometimes you've had to fire people. And I'm just curious, like on a submarine, how does that work when you're like miles offshore under the ocean? You got to fire somebody. Like, what does that process look like?
Yeah, well, you don't do it at sea, because it gets super awkward having to deal with them every day. That's a while you're in port kind of decision that you got to make. But that there is certainly days where you want to fire people when you're at sea, that's for sure. But it's that's no different than I would really equate that almost to like a family conflict where everybody's going to have bad days. You're gonna have arguments. whether you should have or not, or whatever else. But the kind of the great thing about a submarine is like you can't get away from each other, and so it helps to confrontation's okay, but you're gonna have to figure that out and have hard conversations and get back on the same page and move on with life pretty quickly.
Right, understood. My second question is, how have any prior or kind of the obvious upcoming like change in the political landscape of the country changed either how you do your job or I guess like the thought process that kind of goes into your day-to-day activities?
Well, I guess are you talking political, like election related and
Yeah, more or less kind of like how between different, I guess, parties in this case, the military as a whole is controlled, I guess.
yeah.
Like how does that impact how you have to, like, if it even does, like how you kind of have to go about your duties on the sub?
Yeah. It as far as that goes, it really doesn't. Um, we swear an oath to the Constitution, and the Constitution remains the same regardless of whether a Democrat or Republican's in charge of the country. Um, I think where it can be sensitive is that you've got people that support one side or the other, both on board the submarine. And so, this was a very charged political cycle, um, and pretty nasty, really. And and I think it's kind of progressed nastier and nastier, kind of in the last decade or so. But I think the big thing for me, and something that I talked to my crew about, was that um, at the end of the day, uh, we the reason we all joined the Navy remains, right. I didn't want that to become a lightning rod on board the ship. I didn't certainly want um, the boat to be divided between left wing and right wing. That's not what we're here for. The military should be as apolitical as possible. That's the reason why we have a civilian led government. Uh, and we're still fighting for the same thing. And I think really it's and one of the to me one of the best things about the Navy is you get people from all walks of life, right? So I've got people from pretty much every state in the country, including Puerto Rico. I've got all ethnicities, all kinds of orientations, and we're all together, right? And so I think one of the big politically charged things is you get people that are fed a lot of stuff, um, whether it's true or not, for political purposes, and it creates a lot of fear. And when you're around things that are different than you, you realize there's nothing to be afraid of, and you realize that those people are your friends. And so it makes it easier to not become super left wing or right wing when you're on board a ship and you see all walks of life and you recognize that they're Americans just like you are. And so that's really what I tried to portray to the crew was, hey, don't let that kind of crap divide you. That's not what we're here for. Every single one of us loves America, regardless of who we voted for and the things that we want the country to do and the direction we want it to go in. And I think that was pretty well received. I've not really had to deal with any kind of stuff on board the ship in relation to that.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the insight.
Yeah, sure thing.
Hi, how you doing? I'm Renee. I just want to thank you for your service and thank you for taking the time out of your day to speak with us. But was just wondering, what are some of the things that you and the other officers do on the ship, like during high intense situations or like in the heat of adversity, that we could possibly use as like a team to translate, like on the baseball field, whether it be like in the bottom of the ninth inning, 2 outs, bases loaded, or something like
Yeah.
that?
Practice. When you get to the moment where you have to make a split decision, you're going to make the decision that you're trained to make. So you talk about bases loaded, bottom of the ninth. So if put yourself in a situation where you're the shortstop in that spot, and all the different ways a ball could be hit to you, and where you should go with the ball when that happens. You don't want to field it and then have to think about where you're throwing the ball, right? You want to know, and you know that because of the repetition that you've had and the experience you've had with, if I field it this deep in the hole here, I can make the throw to second and get the guy out, or I can't. because it's too far away. You know, that's just kind of one example, but you want to, as much as possible, put yourself through the paces in all of the different scenarios that you might face so that you know what works and what doesn't. And so you have to think about as little as possible, and it becomes muscle memory. You know, the more you do things, the more things just happen and you make right decisions without having to think about it, whether that's like lizard brain theory or what. I don't know, but the more you do things, the more the right answer just pops in your head and you don't have to spend much time thinking about it.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
How's it going? My name is Brady. I'm here with Jaden, Jimmy, Ryan, and Connor. We wanted to thank you for your service and for taking the time to speak with us tonight. And our question was, what personal values have you carried with you throughout your career?
You know, I think I want to be an authentic person every single day. I try to be as transparent as possible, and I show up trying to do the right thing. And I think you can look at what's the right thing through a lot of different lenses and a lot of different ways. And you know, certainly my job right now, it's through the lens of what is in the long-term interest of USS Ohio. What makes us better, you know, 2-3 years from now, with this decision that I make today, or with this, you know, direction that we're going. And so I think I value, I guess, personal value. I value spending my time on quality things. That was another reason why I joined the Navy, is, you know, I really want to use what limited time I have on this earth, doing things of value, things that matter. I've been afforded a lot of opportunity, and I have a lot of natural gifts, and I want to use those for the good of you know, the world, the people around me, and be able to look back and be happy with how I spent my time.
Thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Cain, thank you very much for sitting down speaking with us. I'm here with Nick, Mark, Pat, and I'm Harper. We'd all like to thank you very much for your service as well. A few of us have actually had the pleasure of sitting down with Rick and Grace, learning about what's made great leaders, but more importantly, what makes a great team. And oftentimes we found that's not necessarily just having, you know, the best players or a great captain or whatnot. It has to do with how the team comes together, talking about glue guy, chemistry and whatnot. And so my question to you is, have you noticed any inherent similarities between your baseball teams that you've played for, naval crews you've worked with, groups on your submarines, any inherent similarities in what's made great teams?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. You know, it's the camaraderie that you share is what goes, you know, a long way. You know, I think you will, a lot of people will talk about how winning fixes everything, right? And you know, people will look back at teams that win and talk about, you know, all the things that they had going for them, but that's not necessarily true. I think you will say a team that loses all the time is going to have a really hard time with camaraderie. But winning doesn't necessarily create camaraderie. But I think the opposite can be true. I think camaraderie can build winning, and both on baseball teams and on submarines. I've been in both places where there's a lot of friction, and it's not going to go as well as it could, as when you have a group of people that, you know, are cohesive, all on the same page, all know what the goal is, and are all fighting like hell to get there. And that's kind of what I think builds camaraderie is you know, I don't know what the magic sauce is. I think, you know, people is the magic sauce probably. And there's people that can help kind of drive camaraderie and keep people on the same page. But man, that is a secret sauce to life, in my opinion, is getting around people, getting them on the same page, and really getting after it together.
Hey Andy, my name's Nick. I know you touched on handling pressure with Renee's question. We actually lost 10 seniors last year, and so we have a very young team this year. I was just wondering if you could add any insight to guys who are going to be stepping up for the first time in a new role this year, going from high school to college, and how they can handle that new pressure. You know, it's obviously you have some perspective on it being in your career, so I was wondering what you thought on that.
Yeah, I would describe myself as somebody who likes pressure. I like being thrown in the spot where I've obviously grab a baseball, go step on the mound and go beat the team that thinks, you've got no business beating. And then kind of carried that on in the Navy. But I would say don't be scared, right? If what position you play.
Right field, so not too much action out there, but when it comes out, I make it count. So
Well,
yeah.
And okay. And so are you what year are you?
I'm a senior. I was just
Okay.
asking like our underclassmen who are going to be, some of them are going to be playing for the first time this year, and they
Yeah.
might have anxiety about performing on a team and on the college level for the first time. So just wondering what you thought.
Yeah. Anybody seen Hoosiers before? Is that movie way too old for everybody?
No.
So there's a scene in there where it's small podunk town Indiana. I'm from Indiana, so I'm a big Hoosiers guy. But they go to Indianapolis to play in the state championship, and Gene Hackman's the coach, and he takes them out on the court and measures the distance from the baseline to the free throw line, and then from the floor to the basketball goal, to make everybody recognize that the court is the same no matter where you're playing it, right? So if you're signed up to be a starter this year and you've not done that at the college level, so what? You've done it at the high school level. It's not the first time stepping on the field. You know what you're doing. Grab the opportunity by the reins and take it, because there's somebody else out there that would be dying to be in your shoes. So get after it and give it all you got.
Love it. Thank you.
How's it going, Andrew? My name's Stan, and I want to thank you again for your service to this country. And my question for you is, what is the hardest part of being a leader or a captain?
In general, I love it, but it wears you out. You got to be on every single day. I think that's probably the big thing, is there's no days that I get to go in and shut the door and hide in my hole and pretend like I'm not the captain. You got to show up every single day with a smile on your face, ready to lead people, because people are looking at you all the time, to make sure that what they're doing is the right thing, or that that I've had the strangest discussions with people where they thought they read something on my face that I had no idea was on my face, and inferred that something wasn't going right on board the ship because I was walking down the hallway and maybe I had a scowl for some reason. And so recognizing that every single thing that I do and say is being heard and acted upon, whether I wanted it to be or not, is it can be incredibly tiring. So I would say that's probably the hardest piece. But in general, it's awesome walking on board the ship every day, being the captain of a submarine.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey Andy, my name is Pat. I'm here with a bunch of guys, Tim, Parker, Matt, Tommy, Ryan, and Fern. Our question was, we were wondering kind of the hours of a captain of a submarine are not like the standard 9 to 5. So how do you keep you and your team focused for an extended period of time?
Yeah. I think that is probably one of the most challenging things, is like on a long underway, keeping focus when it can get pretty monotonous, and day in, day out, doing the same things over and over again, and things get routine. And nothing should ever feel routine on board a submarine. And when you start doing things in a kind of a routine way and lackadaisical or, you know, kind of half-assing it, that's when bad things happen really, really quickly. Sometimes you just got to shake things up a little bit. Sometimes you gotta to come out and you know, let people know that they're half-assing it. But you know, in general, it's discipline. And waking up every single day and recognizing the gravity of what you're responsible for and taking that seriously and doing the best that you can. And, you know, I recognize that the best that somebody can do varies on a day-to-day basis. Not everybody is going to be able to give their 100% on every single day, but that's kind of what my job is, to walk around and find the areas where, you know, somebody may not be quite on their A game and figure out a way to compensate for that. Same with baseball, right? You know when you're in a slump, and everybody else knows when you're in a slump. And when the four hitter is striking out, you know, 3 times a game for a week, it's time for the guy batting ninth to get a big double in the bottom of the ninth to tie the game up. And that's how you win ball games, is when one person's struggling, the other person steps up and steps in for them.
Awesome, thank you.
Yep.
I think we were the last question as well, so.
Well, I've got a couple I want to add, and I want to build off that last one. You know, from a leadership perspective, Andy, you talk about the extended time that you're underwater. You know, the hatch closes and you're out down there, and from a leadership perspective, you know, you talk about staying alert. The term mindful is one that's pretty prevalent in leadership thought these days. You know, and there are things that people do to increase their ability to be mindful, aware, alert, whatever word you want, for extended periods of time. Some people will tell you that practicing meditation. Some people will tell you there are things that you can do to train yourself to extend that time that you are alert. Nobody can be alert 100% of the time. Are there any habits that you personally have used along the lines of trying to stretch that time that you can be, you know, as mindful as possible? Question number one.
Yeah. You know, I don't know that I have specifically done things that I am conscious of to increase mindfulness. I'm certainly not a meditator, although I don't knock anybody who is. I try to maintain physical fitness, and that helps kind of clear the mind and you know, wake up, do that first thing in the morning, helps kind of set the tone for the day. I have always been a person that can focus for a long period of time. I think recognizing though that you know, getting up, walking around, taking a break, not just like being in the zone for hours and hours and hours, but you know, sometimes you have to. I'm probably not the best person to ask on like what specific practices, but I think whatever you know works for you, because everybody's different in that regard. And some people I think would probably swear by meditation, and maybe I ought to be doing it. But I think whatever works for you to kind of clear your head and make you ready to attack the day or the problem ahead of you, or you know, whatever gets you ready to knock out an exam or whatever else.
Yeah, just not to plug meditation, but to expand the conversation. People will get an idea in their head that meditation is incense and, you know, staring, going home. You know, walking meditation, music meditation. There's all kinds of other ways that you can stimulate the brain, right? And this is all physics, right? It's not just a spiritual thing. There's science behind the ability to expand your mindfulness attention. And it's something that some people work on. The other thing, by the way, is so when you're not mindful, right? When you're kind of going through that time that you're not totally on. I mean, everybody daydreams. Now you try and minimize daydreaming on a sub, I can only imagine. But human beings go into places. And so many times what's most effective is when they're conscious of the habits that they don't need to be thinking about, because, and again, you might say habits are a bad thing, but not always, right? There can be good habits. So the question for you, Andy, is have you consciously developed habits? And if it isn't meditation, fine, walking or whatever else. But what habits have you consciously worked towards? Because clearly you're a high performing individual, and you came out of the womb that way. But my guess is that there's an awful lot of work you've done to create the personality, the skill sets, the things that allow you to do what you do at a very high level for a very long time.
Yeah, I take a lot of notes. I write things down. Not necessarily journaling, but putting thoughts on paper. Carving things out in terms of short term, medium term, long term, and kind of tracking things that way. I think back to your the mindfulness discussion too is one of the great things about a submarine is I can't bring my phone down on board. So while we're in port, the phone stays topside for security reasons, and there's one less distraction, right? So I would say one of the things that I do is focus on one thing at a time and try to minimize the number of distractions while I'm trying to do something and then move on to the next thing. I think a lot of people talk about how they're great multitaskers, but I think that's been disproven many times that you're not as effective doing three things at once as you are doing one thing, three times. So yeah, I think I take time out to just sit and think too. That my job is kind of the overarching, plan for the ship, and I have a little bit more time to do that kind of stuff, but that helps me to kind of to chart a path and think through, what are the things that we're missing? What are the things we haven't worked on yet? What's the big thing coming 3 months from now that we haven't started to prep for? And what are the things that we need to be doing today to be ready for that thing 3 months from now? That's kind of how I roll in terms of staying prepared and achieving success.
And so talk a little bit more about the think time. The fact that you schedule that is what I, when I do coaching of people in private sector, the most successful do exactly what you just described, which is setting time aside, which is not meeting to meeting to meeting or session to session, right? So could you talk a little bit more about how much, right? Is that a session that you'll schedule that time? Because everything I'm guessing is scheduled with you. Do you schedule a certain amount of time a week, a day? How do you approach that if someone said, hey, I want to take that page out of Andy's notebook?
Yeah, I whether it's scheduled every day or not, I will try to have, at least, if nothing else, a 15-minute window after lunch or whatever else to just sit and not even necessarily think on a thing in particular, but just allow my mind to I think your mind naturally leads yourself towards things that you're kind of thinking subconsciously or things that you're worried about or whatever else. I know that, I don't know if you're that way, Rick, but that the older I get, the more I get woken up at 4 o'clock in the morning thinking about something that that's on my mind. And that's just kind of how the day goes.
Right.
Never used to be a problem when I was a kid, but man, yeah. But I will, probably at least once a week, try to have, a little bit longer period of time, 30, 45 minutes, to where, if I have a thought on something, then I can really dial in on, okay, why am I worried about this? Is it because we're not ready for something? Or is it just because I've not validated that we're ready for something and we need to go practice it? Or, there's this person that's been struggling with something and I need to go check on them and see how we're coming with that or whatever else. But it just gives me the opportunity to kind of, burn through the lists, so like I said, I take a lot of notes, but I can just look back through the last couple of weeks and make sure that I haven't dropped something or reattack on something that we have talked about, but I haven't really checked in yet to see kind of how that's coming or see if I need to pull some areas on how progress is going or whatever else.
Yeah, it's such an important area. And I just say this to the team. It's such an important area to create time to let your body do what it does really well, which is sense things that consciously it might not come right to the front of the brain, right?
Yeah,
You're gonna
absolutely.
sense things about people, you're going to sense things about situations. Your body is an incredible vehicle that gathers so much information that you can't possibly process it in real time. So the stuff that matters often sticks, as Andy says, the back of your neck, your head, and sometimes you pop it up in the middle of the night. But if you give yourself some time, right, and just don't overschedule, the stuff that comes through can really be important, particularly vis-a-vis relationships, right? The signals that you may miss as you're going through it. Somebody will say something a different way, checking in with each other. We talk to the captains quite a bit about all that's going on in your lives outside of baseball, right? And the camaraderie happens not only when you guys can talk about that double play that you just pulled off, but what's going on with each other. You guys are a big part of each other's support system. And the most effective teams go well beyond the sport that they're playing. And, to Andy's point, knows a little bit something about everybody else on the boat. And that's what creates, real cohesiveness that sometimes, more often than not, affects performance.
Yeah. And I would argue it affects performance probably in the most impactful ways.
Amen. Amen. Well, one last question for me. If there was one takeaway, Andy, that you would want to, and you've shared a lot, fantastic stuff. I'll ask a coach if he's got one more closing question. But if there was one takeaway, one thing that of all the stuff you'd shared that you might choose to emphasize one more time for a very talented group of student athletes who are looking forward to not only a break but the season coming up, what would the thing be that you'd reinforce one more time?
Yeah. Without trying to sound like the old man here, I mentioned being able to look at how I've spent my time and be happy with the things that I've done. That is, as I've gone from 22-year-old college student, and I can clearly remember only looking ahead. Right, you've got your whole life ahead of you. You got a brand new college degree. You got an opportunity to make real money for the first time, and things happen fast, and you're just kind of charging, full speed ahead at whatever comes your way. At some point, you recognize that this life is not forever, and that becomes part of your conscious in a way that is absolutely not there when you're in your early 20s. When I remember being 20 and I was going to live forever. That is certainly not true. But you do some assessment and you start looking backward a little bit more. And I think I have been able to look backwards and say, man, I'm pretty pleased with how this has gone so far. I think that there's a lot of people out there that cannot say the same. And I think when you see, you can see those people, right, that have made choices that are contrary to what their values are for whatever reason that is. Sometimes people have to make that decision, for all the right reasons. But it leaves kind of an emptiness. And so recognize that the decisions that you make and the choices that you make and the things that you choose to do, while it may not seem important now, at some point when you're looking at your life in chunks and you say, man, did I really want to spend 5 years doing that job just for the money or whatever else, or I was doing something that I know had no value to anything and maybe had negative value, but I made a lot of money doing it. I think I would offer, try to avoid that and try to think of, what are the things you want to be doing with your time? What are the things that you value? And as much as life allows you to do that, pursue those things. And then when you start taking an assessment in your mid-40s, you won't have to have a crisis about it.
Awesome. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Coach Hill, anything, last words, Coach?
Just one last quick one, Andy, if you don't mind, just to kind of hammer the point home to these guys, how important it is, to be a cohesive unit. And as selfish as the game of baseball can be, you also need your 8 other guys to be on the same page and working towards the same goal. From a hitter standpoint, I walk out of a game 3 for 4. I'm pretty happy, not if you don't win, no, but if every guy can be trying to get the most out of himself, how much that helps the team. I got to assume it's the same, on a sub, that you're only as strong as your weakest link.
Yeah, absolutely. I think probably one of the things I liked most about baseball and pitching specifically was that I could have a real individual impact on a team sport. But I was not going to ever win a game if we didn't score a run, right? I could put up zeros all day long, and it doesn't matter if somebody else doesn't get up and get a hit. So that the same certainly holds true. Submarining is, we describe it as the ultimate team sport because there's so many people that are involved, and each person can have a very big impact depending on what's happening, on board the ship, and training together, fighting together, eating together, sharing off watch time together, and just really embracing being a team and everything that comes along with that, the good, the bad, the ugly, and recognizing that, that if this is the whole baseball team, it's these people in the room, and that's not going to change, right? Nobody's transferring in January to save the day. It's all up to you guys together. And if you guys can either be good, or you can suck, and that's completely up to you. So get after it and do what you can to be the best that Bentley can be this spring.
Amen. Hey, Andy, thanks so much. Thank Tyler for letting us use his technology. Thank April, because I'm sure you're a little late for dinner. We'll let you go to that. Send her my best. And
Well, I'm on the West Coast, so I'm early for dinner still.
Oh man, so there you go. There you go. Well, listen, so thank you very much. It's been fantastic. We'll get this video to the members of the team that couldn't make it, but can't thank you enough. And as everyone has, most importantly, thank you for your service. What you do is words fail sometimes. So we'll just leave it at thank you.
Yeah, sure thing. It's my pleasure, and I've had a blast. Great talking to you guys, and good luck this spring.
Great.
You, Eddie.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.